Hello. Today for our quarantined and confident devotion, we're still in Mom's Week. We talked about Moses' mother earlier this week. Today we're talking about a woman named Naomi from the book of Ruth. Naomi was specifically Ruth's mother-in-law. So I think Mother's Day is a great chance to think about the gifts that God gives us through our mothers-in-law too. I have a wonderful mother-in-law for whom I'm very thankful. And we're only going to cover one chapter of Ruth today. It's a short book. Ruth only has 4 chapters, and if you'd like to sit down and read it, you won't be disappointed. It's a great account of trust in God and the love that God's people show to each other. But we're talking about just the first chapter, which deals specifically with the relationship between Ruth and her mother-in-law, Naomi. If you're using the materials introduction there, I have describe a time when a mom in your life demonstrated great faith in God. I'd like to talk a little bit about my mother-in-law today. You may know that my wife, Carrie, there's a picture of her here, and our daughter of our very good friends, a girl named Ellie here. My wife, Carrie, was paralyzed in a car accident just a few months into her freshman year of high school, and that was very difficult for Carrie. But just imagine what that would be like, for your child, to be a mother of a child who's just starting high school and has all these things in front of her, and you maybe had these visions for how things were going to go for her in high school and college and beyond, and in a moment, those things are just radically transformed, and whatever vision you had gets altered. And I know for my mother-in-law, this was a very challenging time to have a daughter in the hospital for months and months, and to receive that news that she would not be able to walk again. But I love my mother-in-law dearly, and one of the best things about her is her trust in God. She has this rock solid trust in God despite what happened to Carrie, despite the problems that she has, as my mother-in-law has faced in her life. She trusts in this God of all grace, this God of all power, and knows that He has a plan that works out for her good and for the good of all those who love Him. So her commitment to God's word and her trust in His promises has been a great blessing for me since I've gotten to know her, and her her studying the Bible is inspirational for me. I know her Bible is well worn out. I don't know exactly what time she gets up most mornings, but I know she spends a couple hours each morning studying God's word because it's the most important thing in the world to her, and I'm very grateful for the faith that God has given to her. All right, let's talk about Ruth chapter 1. So, sort of the background of what's going on here. The first couple verses tell us there's a man named Elimelech who lives in Judah, and there's a famine there. And so he and his wife, Naomi, and their 2 sons moved to a foreign country called Moab to try to escape the famine. And while they're there, we're not told how long it is, but Elimelech dies. So Naomi loses her husband, which, again, you can imagine what a difficult situation that would be to find yourself in as a mother. She's got 2 sons, and the husband that was, pretty important in her life is now gone. And she's in this foreign land feeling maybe alone. And so they're there for about 10 years. Both sons marry local women, Moabitess women. And then after 10 years, both of those sons die as well. So Naomi is just left by herself as far as the family that came there with her. But she has these 2 daughters-in-law. We'll stop there for a second. Number 1 says Naomi's family had moved to a foreign country to escape a famine. While they were there, her husband and both of her sons died. Describe how this difficult situation would have been even more challenging in Naomi's time, which is maybe about 1000 BC, more challenging then than it would be now. If somebody was in Naomi's situation today, in 2020, lost their husband and both of their sons, that would be devastating. But there are safety nets in place to provide some help. It wouldn't be an easy life there, but there would be some measures in place to make sure that woman was taken care of. And in these times, when really the husbands, the males, were the ones that did most of the working to earn money. Here's a picture of Naomi and Ruth. The future would have just looked so bleak for them from a human perspective. What are we going to do now? Are we going to beg for money? What's going to happen to us? There's not this social, security net. There's not the government structure in place to help these people. God just really told his people, you need to take care of widows, you need to take care of orphans, and so you're really relying on the kindness of strangers to get through this. So Naomi says some things in this chapter and beyond that sound pretty bitter. And that's one of the things, if you're using the sheet, that we'll talk about in the sheet, we won't talk about so much in this video. But just for someone in her perspective, as she looks at her situation, it just looks completely awful. And yet she does maintain this trust in God, despite some of the kind of blunt, some bitter sounding things that she says. She still trusts that God is going to take care of her, even if that's hard to see. Number 2 says, identify 3 to 4 serious challenges that mothers often seem to face in life. In addition to all the other challenges of being a human being, a sinful human being in a sin-stained world, I think mothers face a lot of challenges. I guess the one I just wanted to talk about here is the responsibilities that they have. This picture here kind of illustrates that a little bit. You have this woman dragging 2 kids along, and you've got all these other things, her laptop and the clock that represents how the schedule is so packed, and you got some food and coffee and spreadsheets and things like that. I think moms often are asked to wear so many different hats, and I think the assumption is that they'll just do it. They'll do it and they won't complain, and it's an extremely challenging thing because they're just one person and they have the same limits that the rest of us sinful people have. So I would say the challenges I've seen the moms in my life face is just they have to do so many things, and they're charged with raising kids in the faith and turning them into solid, productive citizens. And in our society, and I know fathers and husbands do a good job helping out with that, and I know many good husbands and dads, but it does feel like a lot of that work seems to fall on moms, and that's a really tough thing. I think what makes it especially challenging sometimes is that maybe they don't get the acknowledgement that would be fitting for that. I know that I didn't always do a very good job of expressing my thanksgiving to my mom for what she sacrificed to raise us 3 kids, or the long hours she put in at work and then come home and make dinner. And my dad was good about making dinner too. But just to do all the things that she did, how challenging that was. It's hard for me to imagine what that would have been like for her. So in those years, I've tried to be, more vocal about my thanksgiving for what she did for me in the past and sacrifice it. But I think in that time I was not, when you're a kid, you don't think about how hard it is to be a mom. You just think, well, I'm done with school. I want help with my homework, or I want food right now. And the idea of saying thank you to a woman who's making so many sacrifices is difficult. It just doesn't necessarily occur to you. So thanks to moms out there who sacrifice so much for the next generation, and who work so hard to be good wives and good moms to husbands and kids. You are a real blessing from God. Okay, the next section, the last section we'll talk about from Ruth for today. So Naomi hears that there's some people are being taken care of back in her homeland, back in the town of Bethlehem. So she's going to go back there, and her 2 daughters-in-law, so that's Ruth and a young woman named Orpah, they're going to go back with her. They're saying, we'll come back with you. You're older. We don't want to leave you alone. Why don't you let us come back with you? And they start walking with her, and Naomi just says, look, you guys need to stay here. To be a foreigner in Judah, in Bethlehem, it's going to be difficult for you to find someone that will marry you, just because that's not so much how it always worked in those days, that you tended to marry within your own nationality. She said, if you're going to go with me, your life is going to be really hard. So you guys should stay here, and God will provide you a husband here. And that's what number 3 is about. After the events of the first 5 verses, the reader might expect different words about God from Naomi in verses 8 and 9. It's interesting and encouraging for me to see that Naomi still has this faith in God. Now, I know in this chapter and subsequent chapters she says some very bitter things, but yet she still has this understanding that she's passing along to these 2 women. God's in control. If you're going to find a husband that you can love and share your life with, and the rest of your days, God's in charge of that. So despite this grief she suffered, she still has this confidence in God's plan. That just reminded me a little bit of Job. If you remember the account of Job, Job in one fell swoop loses his money, his health, and his kids, and it's just this devastating section. And Job still says this in chapter 1. Naked I came from my mother's womb, naked shall I return. The Lord gave, and the Lord has taken away. Blessed is the name of the Lord. That's sort of the attitude that Naomi describes here. And with all, due respect to some of the harder things she says here, she still has this confidence that God is in control. Even if it feels to her like God is not necessarily giving her what she wants, she still has this confidence that God is the one who's in control of all these things. And that was Job's thought. Even though Job struggled a little bit in his account as well, he knows that everything that falls from the hand of God is a gift from him. And thanks be to God for getting us through really dark situations. So Naomi tells the two daughters-in-law, go back to your people. And Orpah does. Orpah weeps, but she decides she's going to go back with her people. And there's this beautiful scene where Ruth just clings to Naomi and refuses to let her go. And I'll read these words from that Ruth says. They're some of the most beautiful words in the Bible, this confession of faith from this woman who certainly didn't grow up believing in the true God. Ruth replied, "Don't urge me to leave you or turn back from you. Where you go, I will go, and where you stay, I will stay. Your people will be my people, and your God my God. Where you die, I will die, and there I will be buried. May the Lord deal with me, be it ever so severely, if even death separates you from me." When Naomi realized that Ruth was determined to go with her, she stopped urging her. So that faith of Ruth is phenomenal. And to say, the most important thing in my life, Naomi, is the God that you and I believe in together as true believers in this God of Israel. So I don't care what happens to me. All that matters is that I keep worshiping God with you. And it was a big deal in these times to be buried in your homeland. And by going with Naomi, Ruth was basically saying, I don't care about that. I don't care if I'm buried in Moab. I'm going here with this woman because she's going back to where people worship the true God, and that's what I want. Number 4 in the sheet says, Ruth's response to Naomi is beautiful. Describe what this says about the faith Naomi and her now deceased family must have shared with the two women that their sons married. So at some point in this family's history, these two sons marry these two young women, and they had done a great job of passing along faith in the true God to these. We don't hear much about Orpah, but at the very least, Ruth believed in this true God. What a gift that Naomi was able to share this faith with her daughter-in-law. So the question there is, how has your faith been impacted by a mother in your life? I talked a little bit about my mom earlier this week. Both my mom and my mother-in-law have both been very involved in their church's youth ministry, youth discipleship programs. My mom taught Sunday school for a super long time. Some of my earliest memories of church are her teaching the 3- and 4-year-old preschool class in Sunday school. And my mother-in-law, too, the different churches she's attended, has always been teaching Sunday school, helping out with Vacation Bible School. So that was a great example for me from early on. I saw in my mom, and then once I started dating Carrie and got engaged to her, saw what her mom was all about. This commitment to Christian education is something that they have passed along to me and to my wife, Carrie. So another reason we're thankful to God for both of these wonderful ladies in our life. Last question for today. Ruth's refusal to leave Naomi showed tremendous love for her in addition to strong faith. List 2 to 3 ways you could show love in action to a mom in your life over the next few days. There's lots of things you could do. Stores aren't open right now, so it might be hard to find a gift for your mom. Maybe you can order on Amazon. It's Friday today, so 2-day shipping. Maybe it gets there. I don't know. I make no promises. But maybe just keep it simple. Say thank you to your mom for what she has done for you. If you have a mother-in-law, say thank you to that mother-in-law for what she's done for you or for your spouse growing up. I mentioned earlier, just it's not natural maybe for us to say thank you to a mom, but they are such great gifts from God. So thank you. I don't know if either of them will watch it, but thank you to my mom and to my mother-in-law. You are awesome ladies. God has done me a great service and Carrie a great service by putting you in our lives. And for you out there watching this, if you have a mom or a mother-in-law who's still here on this earth, maybe take the time over these next few days to make it very clear to them that you are thankful to God for them. Okay, thank you for taking the time to watch this, and God's blessings to you. Bye.